All right, this is Rhonda. Can you guys hear me?
I can. Woo! Okay, welcome, welcome. Thank you everybody for your patience. We are struggling here and there with GoTo. They redid their entire platform and we've had all sorts of issues, probably some at our end, some at their end, but looks like we got it sorted out. So, um I'm just going to do a quick intro. I don't want to cut into too much time. We want to thank everybody for joining us for episode 72. Today is Select Tips and Tricks, part one. And we really appreciate you joining us. We have our wonderful trainer, Rhonda, here today, which I'm going to turn over to in a second. This is super casual. If you have any questions, please use the questions or chat feature that should be somewhere up on your screen, and we will try to get through as many questions as we can. If by chance we don't get to it and we can reach out to you offline, that we will certainly do so. These sessions are recorded, and we will send out a follow up email and a link to the recording with some point over the next week. So if you want to share it with your coworkers or use it for, to look back and see what we talked about, that's great. And with that, I think, Rhonda, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you so we can get started.
All right, well, thank you very much again. Welcome everyone to today's Save You the Seat series on some tips and tricks in SoftPro Select. We're going to go through some things. Some might be refreshers, some might be some, I didn't realize I could do that items as we go through. And as Leslie said, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in to us and we will get those answered for you. I am going to now switch out and share my screen here to populate SoftPro. All right. Everybody should now see SoftPro Select up on the screen. Okay, perfect. So let's talk some neat tips and tricks here in SoftPro Select. So a couple of things that we get questions on a lot when we are looking, when we're on site and talking with our customers is there any way we can drag things out of this screen and kind of have things on separate screens? Well, we don't have the capability to take these tabs, right, that pop up whenever we are looking at our orders and whatnot and put them on a secondary monitor, but we do have the capability to actually split our screen and be able to show two orders either or two tabs, whether it's an order tab and a document tab so you can see your document versus your order, or whether it's two orders side by side. We do have the capability of either putting them side by side, left to right, or up and down, have one at the top, one at the bottom. If you wanted to split your screen and have two tabbed items showing simultaneously, you could grab one of the tabbed items, it doesn't matter which one, and you could left click and hold it, guys, and drag it toward the middle of the screen, and you'll see this little QWERTY like little widget icon that appears, and you'll notice it has an up, a left, a down, and a right. This is where you can choose where do you want this other tabbed item to appear. Whether I put it to the right, and now I have file or order 305 next to order 304, so I can see them side by side, or I can grab it and put it on the top and I can have them up and down from each other. So whereas I can't take it and grab it to a secondary monitor, I can take it and grab it and put it side by side. It's kind of useful sometimes, right? Well, maybe we're in documents and we want to look at our preview over here and have our order to the other side and kind of use those hot spots to go back and forth. It's a good way to kind of keep it between the two. Another good example of maybe utilizing this kind of option and putting those orders side by side is sometimes I might want to take some documents that live in my attachment section and I want to move them between the two. This gives me that capability to have them side by side, and then I can just drag and drop between the two orders the information I want to move around. Whichever tab is highlighted, that is the one that you are actively working on. Now, if I want to put it all back straight across the board, no problem. I can grab it and utilizing the little widget, put it straight in the middle and that takes it and puts it back. You even have the capability, guys, of reorganizing how the tabs even appear going straight across. I want that start page to be first. I just drag it and move it, and I can reorganize the order. So that's one thing I can do, right? I can go in and I can do multi-view of my tabs. I have that capability to kind of organize them around a little bit better for me to manipulate. Now, the other thing I can do up here with my orders is if I hover over an actual order tab, I'll get a little fly down pane, and it actually shows me the type of transaction. Is it a purchase? Is it a refi? Is it a cash deal? What is my equity or other? It's going to show me the type of order based off of the drop down that I chose on my express order entry screen. It'll show me the property address for the property in regards to that order, the buyer's name, and the seller's name. So if I do have multiple tabs open at once, I can hover over each and notice how it changes based over the tab I'm hovering over. Now, as we're talking about kind of those multi-views and looking at things in a different component, let's take a little bit of time and talk about our task summary box here on our start page and what we can do from this view option. So we know, right, that task summary is a way for us to see our kind of our daily to-do list based off of tasks that are maybe built into our various orders. And it talks to me directly, Rhonda, as to these are the tasks that are assigned to me. If I click that view button, I get that pop-up pane right at the bottom of the screen that I have that capability to lock down with my push pin, and I can lock down to see what individual orders I may have tasks in and what individual tasks I may have. Well, you also have the capability, guys, of moving these pop-up panes that appear at the bottom of your screen around as well. If I lock it down by clicking the push pin and I put it in place, I can place my cursor anywhere within this blue space and grab it, just left click and hold it and start dragging it. And notice again, I get that same widget. But now instead of just here, and it's going to move it again up, down, left, right. If I move it to the right and let it go, I can pin it to the side of my screen versus the bottom of my screen. It's kind of nice, right? So now I can see the entire order without it breaking it and making it smaller and shrinking it because it's at the bottom, because I'm working with it to the right. And then I can work off of my work items to go between various orders to work on it, whether I'm pulling it from the order tab or from the task tab itself. So I even have the capability of moving those pop-up panes from one direction to the other versus just necessarily a tab. The key to it is make sure you pin it down with the push pin so you have the flexibility to move it around. Now, outside of being able to move my work items from the left to the right or wherever I want to see it, did you know that you also have the capability to filter your individual tasks? We know, right? Sometimes these task lists can be a lot depending on how many tasks we may have within our organization. And we may see that My Task tab, and it may have 50 plus tasks in there that are due over the course of the next little bit of time. But you know what? I don't want to have to go through all of them. I can click column headers to sort them numerically or alphabetically by dates and whatnot, but I also have the capability to actually filter these tabs as well. Notice here when I'm looking at my tasks from my list, I have various tasks that are shown. Maybe instead of seeing a list of every task that is still required, I only want to see the ones where I need to, at this point, obtain and review ID in the file. If you right click on a task header, column header, you'll actually get a filter window. And you can choose which task you want to filter it by. Notice these are checkboxes. Checkboxes give you the flexibility to choose multiples. So I could choose one or more. And when I click OK, Notice it took my 7 tasks to just the 2 based off of the filter I put in place. Then I can double click to open that order and work within that order should I need to based off of my task. So if I wanted to clear that filter, I would right click again and choose clear filter, and that allows me to see all 7 again. These tasks will automatically refresh about every 8 minutes in, but you do have that hard refresh icon at the front that you can refresh it back. You can complete your task from here if you were not aware. You have the capability to right click and complete a task. When you do not have to be in the order to complete it. You simply mark it as completed. It says, "Are you sure?" You say, "Yes, I am." It then opens and saves it without you seeing it. And again, when I do that hard refresh, I only now have 6 tasks versus 7. You also have the capability, based off of your permissions, to see somebody else's task list as well. Two different ways we can do it. One way, if we have the permission to view them, we can actually see tabs appear here beside my orders and my tasks that will actually show me those individuals. If I click that view button drop down, I have an option here in the middle to view others. If I click on it, it's going to show me a list of everybody in my office. I can choose whose tasks I want to see and click OK. And notice I now have Allie's tasks and her orders in tabs to the right of mine. Again, I can then click on it to see what's going on, and I can use the same functionality I use within mine. I want to see everything that's closing in the next 7, that has a due, that's due, I should say, in the next 7 days, any tasks that are due, and I can filter it to just those. I'm going to unpin my work list items, and it's going to minimize back to the bottom of my screen so I can still have access to it at any given time, and I can just hover over it to have it pop back up at me. Now we also have built in with my work items another functionality to use to work off of, to use as a mechanism to be able to find orders to work off based off of tasking and whatnot, and those are your work list. You access work lists from that My Work Items flyout pane. It is the third icon in the toolbar. Looks like to me cascading spreadsheets. If you click on that button, it's going to fly out then to the right-hand side, and you're going to see your work list. And again, you have that push pin capability to lock it in place. Work lists are just lists, reports, basically, that you have the capability to build yourself based off of criteria in the order so that you can work from that individual list. If I double click on a work list, it's going to show me all items that fall within the parameters of what that work list is defining for me. So it may be just overdue tasks, it may be tasks due today, it may be orders closing in the next week, whatever I've created that work list for. Now, what can I do within these work lists? So we know in my work items, it's static, right? These are the tags, or excuse me, these are the columns I see, and that's all I can see. I can't manipulate what I see here. A work list, however, I have options. I can maneuver and change what columns I see so that it is specific to what I need in order to choose an order to work from. If I click on options, it gives me a query window and it says, all right, Rhonda, these are your selected columns. These are the 6 that you see. If there's one I don't need a settlement location. I can highlight it and move it to the left. And then if I click apply and OK, I can do a hard refresh. And now it's changed up my list. So I'm only seeing what I need to see. So you have the capability to build out those work lists as well. So that's a couple of things that we can do, right? Within having multi-views, whether we're moving task list from side to side instead of fly-up panes at the bottom, whether we are dividing our orders and looking at them side by side if needing, or filtering those tasks as an easier way to find what we're looking for. Let's jump into an order now and let's talk about some of the functionality we now have within our orders for
Hey,
things we
Rhonda.
can do. Yeah.
Hey, we did have one question regarding the screens and whatnot. And
Mhm.
they asked, can you open an order and have email screen open too?
Yes. So if I have my order open, right, I can have my email up as well on a secondary screen. And then I can drag and drop across as I need to and those sorts of things. So, yep, because Outlook, really, your email is part of Outlook. It's not part of Select. Yeah, we're connected where we can move things around and we can create emails in the order and send them. But ultimately, it's Outlook. It's a separate application, so it can live on a secondary monitor.
Okay, great. That's all we
All
have for now.
right,
Thanks.
perfect. Okay, let's look at our order contacts, right? We all know, right, guys, how important order contacts are, right? It is the heart and soul of our entire order. Everything lives based off of these codes, right? The codes control the dollars and the documents across the board. Well, sometimes when we're looking at our um, contacts, there are some things that we can actually now identify on individual contact screens. And I just kind of wanted to kind of bring them to light to everyone. We know, right, when we enter contacts like buyers and sellers, we have to choose that type joint to have two different names in our orders, right, between a buyer and a seller. Well, sometimes, right, we create a new order and we get a contract and we see the names and we're like, yeah, I don't know if they're joint, if they're one contact, or if they should be two. So we have the capability of actually now splitting our contacts, right? If I have Fred and Wilma here and I've created them as one singular buyer, but it's been determined that they should each be their own individual buyer, they're two individual entities, then I have that capability to split a contact on that buyer, borrower, or seller contact screen as long as the type is an individual. If I click split contact, it gives me a little warning and it says, all right, now we're going to split these into two. Are you sure you want to proceed? And I say, yes, I would. And I can now split it. Notice this borrower went just to Fred. And if I go back out to my order contacts, look what it did, guys. It automatically created Wilma as a secondary buyer. Easy, right? So now I've got both of them as individual buyers. I did not have to rekey her information or anything like that. Now, I will say, once you split them, if I open up Wilma's contact screen, you will see that it keeps the address the same, etc. So it does take it and basically just split the contacts in two. It has one name for Fred, one name for Wilma, but the rest of the information is the same. So you may have to make some adjustments. Now, just like I can split them, I can combine them as well. If I have them as two separate contacts and it is determined they should just be one, I can highlight the first contact with a single click in the order contacts window. And then if I look in my grid, I have this little toolbar right here, or in my toolbar, I have this little like a merge icon, call it combine those contacts. I can click combine and it'll show me any other individual buyers I have entered. So if I had Pebbles in here or Bam Bam or Betty or Barney, and they were all buyers, I could still combine them together with Fred, one of them. I can choose who I want and click OK. And again, I'm going to get a warning and it says, hey, I'm going to combine them. However, if you entered anything in any of the outgoing wiring information in Wilma's contact, that's going to be lost, right? Because that's kind of being removed and it's just going to be Fred's contact now. It's going to say, hey, do you want to proceed? And I'm going to say, yes, I do. And now I've combined Fred and Wilma back. What it also does is it actually adds a note in your general order notes and it shows what you've done. You've changed it, you've combined it, you've changed it, whatever action you've taken is going to be reflected in your order notes. Now, I do see where I have a question. Does this only apply to new files opened after the split feature was added? That would be an accurate statement, yes. If you are in an older order and it was prior to that split button being input, and when you open that older order, if you don't see that split button, then you won't be able to do the split feature. Okay. So you have that capability to split them and to combine them. Now we also have the capability, right, and some of the functionality. Let's look at what happens if I open up my seller contact if we have to navigate between an organization and an individual. Well, let's say we open up an order and we have here that this LLC is going to be the seller. And we're looking here and we've got the name of the LLC, and down in our corporate officer signee grid, right, we have the name of the principal who in reality is probably going to sign on behalf of my organization. Well, what happens if when title comes in, we're like, yeah, Rebel Property or Rebel Enterprises here does not the seller. It is actually Emmett Brown who is our seller. We have the capability to switch it to an individual. And when we do, look what happens. It takes the name of our corporate officer and it puts it in the first name, last name field for us. So it just takes that person and adds it to an individual's name. If I go back to organization, it puts that person back in the corporate officer signee. Now, it is going to remove the actual name of the organization once you flip it. You will have to retype that back in. So you would have to type that whatever organization is. Now, keep in mind, organization types for buyers and sellers can live in a lookup table if you use the same one a lot, if you have a company that you do a lot of business with. So you do also have that capability to possibly have them in some sort of lookup table to pull in information as well. Okay, so you can navigate between the two. It'll move corporate officer signees into first name, last name if you change it to an individual. If you change it back to an organization, it will pull those individuals back to the grid, but you will have to manually re-enter the name information. I had another question here. Is there a way to move buyers from the first to the second and the second to the first? You're talking about here how to, just to make sure I clarify there, Lisa, I have two separate buyers and you want to reorganize the order they're appearing in the grid? Is that what you're asking me there? I just want to make sure I get a little bit of clarification. While I'm waiting on that, I had another question. Will it also copy the officer's email and phone into the individual contact type? So it should. Anything that you entered, in my case, I didn't have any of that. So if I go into the individual person, the corporate officer I've entered, and I enter their phone number and I enter whatever other information I have here, and I close it, it's in my grid. There's the email, there's the work. If I switch it to an individual, it does put it in those individual contact fields for that individual person when I changed it. Then if I move it back to organization, it is still in their individual corporate officer field as well. In my order contacts, there is not a way for me to reorganize the order. If I had two separate buyers, so if I had Fred and Wilma and I had Barney as an individual buyer, he's the B2, Fred and Wilma are the B1. In this contact screen, in here, the only way I can move Fred and Wilma and have Wilma first and Fred second is I would have to manually retype it. That's the only way I'm gonna get it to move back and forth. Okay. All right. So that's some things I can do, right? I can split them, I can join them, I can do a couple of different things. You also have built into your contact screens here for your seller, you have this current vesting hyperlink. And we know that hyperlinks, right, are something blue. Um, you know, my little saying is when it's something blue, it's going to take you somewhere new. If it's a hyperlink, you're going somewhere. You're either going to either go A, to a lookup table to pull something from a predetermined list, or B, you are going to, it's going to take you to a different screen. It's going to take you somewhere new. In this instance, it is looking to the name you entered for the seller, and it's putting it in the current vesting field for the for title, right? For your commitments. If you click on current vesting, it takes me to that screen and it shows me how that current vesting is set up, right? So what this does is it's just a way kind of for the contact screen and the title screens to kind of look at each other a little bit. It always pulls to the commitment screen, right, to your title screens, the name of the seller you actually entered. Well, sometimes the seller name and how they actually held title may be two different names. So title comes in and it says that it is Doc Emmett Brown, and they make that change. If I look back at my contact screen, I can see in my current vesting where it's reflected that way. So if I did need to change my seller contact to match up to how they took title, I could see how the current vesting is listed based off of what title entered, and I could make that determination if I needed to. Kind of going back to the switching the spouses back and forth, if I have two and I wanted Wilma on top and Fred on bottom, I'm not sure if it's going to be an update soon, switching the spouses back and forth between each other. That's something I can definitely, we can look into and kind of let you guys know. I don't know if it's something in the works, but I can take a, ask the question and get back if it's something that we can do and rearrange. If an open file without applied template and I want to apply the template after, can I do that? Yes, you can. You can apply a template after the fact. When an order is opened, right, we all know we create the order and we apply a template at order creation. Well, if we don't have a template that automatically defaults here, and we just get busy and we click OK, the order will still open without the template being applied. And it opens, it's going to be totally blank. One big key to remember, guys, is when you open a new order and it opens and a template was applied, you should always immediately see some red text at the very top of your express order entry screen, always. It's either going to be an order type that's defaulted or it's going to be a transaction type, okay? If it's totally blank, notice I don't have either, then that's my first indicator a template was not applied. The real big key, though, is if you go to order contacts and you don't have any, then Houston, we got a problem, right? Because we don't have anybody in place, and that means we have to add everybody, and who's got time for that? So you do have the capability to add a template after the fact. In your order ribbon, you do have in your action section of the ribbon an apply template button in which you can apply that template. If I click apply template, it looks just like the order templates to copy window that's on an open order, new open order window. And you apply it the same way. You search for it, you search again, and once you've done that, it's going to give you a list of all the templates you have available, and you're going to choose the template that is applicable, and you're going to say, okay, it pops that template in. Now, this is the very important piece to remember about templates, guys. Templates do not override each other, they append. So before you do this step and apply this template in the order, you better make sure you don't have a template applied. So if you don't have order contacts and you don't see any red text, you're good to go. But if you do, and you put this template on top of it, it is going to duplicate things. It will create two of every type of contact. If you have preset fees in your template, it will duplicate all of your fees and charge 2 closing fees and 2 doc prep fees and so forth. You can only put one transactional template to an order. Transactional template means, is it a purchase? Is it a refi? Is it a cash? Whatever individual transactional types you have. Now, once you say okay, it'll apply that template. You'll see my red text pop in, tells me it's been applied. I say okay. So I've got my purchase read, I've got my title and escrow, and if I go to that ever lovely order contacts, now I got some guys in place. If I do see this, I don't want to apply another transactional template. Now, there are other types of templates you can apply after a fact, like maybe a subdivision template for title, but you want to be very, very careful about those transactional type templates. All righty. So we've talked splitting screens. We've talked moving our My Work items around. We've talked some functionality we can do in our contact screens. A couple of other things on your contact screen I do want to kind of point out before we move on from that is going to be, don't forget, when you input or enter contact info, every contact screen is going to have an anticipate drop down. Either how you anticipate funds being received or how you anticipate funds being dispersed. If you know that these funds are going to come in a certain way, you can choose from the drop down. That way, when you get over into your register, it can all be set up for you just like you want to see it. You also have outgoing wiring instructions for each contact as well, where you can input wiring instructions should you desire to do so. Depending on if maybe you guys are integrated with SP banking, it'll tie into some of your SP banking. If you generate certain transaction forms out of your register to utilize as outgoing wire forms to send to your accounting department for them to be able to pull together your outgoing wires, etc. You do have fields here in which you can put those that information. You even have the capability to indicate who you verified instructions with, how you verified them, any notes you may need to make in regards to that verification. Anything you enter in these outgoing wire fields will talk to your register, and when you post that outgoing wire, you will see that same information there. All right. So that's kind of everything in regards to what we can see with contacts. I'm going to flip gears again because I'm getting a couple more questions about that template we just talked about. So I want to kind of hone in on that just a little bit more just to answer some of these questions. One of the questions was, if I open a cash template and I want to change it to a loan template, is there an easier way to change, or can you only manually change? So with templates, guys, it's got to be a manual change. You're either A, going to have to cancel this order and open a new one with the correct template applied, or change it. But keep in mind, the only difference between a cash template and a loan template are probably going to be 3 things that you would have to change. One, if it's a cash and it goes to loan, you would uncheck the cash checkbox. What this cash checkbox does is it actually talks to your commitment document. And if it's checked, then on your commitment, it says that you're just going to issue a deed instead of a deed and a mortgage or a deed of trust. Okay. So you would uncheck that box. You would enter a loan amount because you have a loan applied, and you would enter a lender contact. That's really the only difference between a cash and a purchase. That's what you're looking at. Now, you're probably going to put your eyeballs on like your closing fee. If you charge different, you want to make sure your fee's right. But outside of that, that's the only difference really between the two. So if it's a cash and it needs to become a loan, just add the pieces that would be applicable to a loan. If it's a loan and then they decide to go cash, just don't enter the pieces that would be applicable to a loan. If there's no loan amount entered, there's no loan that's going to tie into your order. Okay. Now, is it possible to see the selected template once it's chosen? Why, that is an excellent question, because that is where I was going next. Have you guys ever looked in your order ribbon and seen all these things that say history? There's an order history, there's a document history, there's an automation button. What do these things do? Well, to answer the question, is there a way to see the selected template once it's chosen? That's your order history. Think of order history as the, I don't know who lives in your office, right? Every single time you save your order, and we know an order needs to be saved when we see an asterisk. So if I go in and save my order, my asterisk goes away. Every time you save your order, a log is created of that save. And if you click on order history, it's going to open up another tab on the history of that order. And here is every single time I have saved that order. It tells me when it was saved, who saved it, and notice in the descriptive field, some have descriptions and some do not. There are relatively about 50 or so fields in the software that when we change it, it saves what we changed, right? Sometimes we just do a save and what we did not incorporate a field that would trigger or mark what we changed, so it'll just be blank. When you want to know what template was applied to an order, it's the very first log. If you double click on the create log and open it up, you'll see an order history window. I'm going to expand this out just a little bit. If I can get my, here we go. In this details window part right here, if you go to the very bottom, it shows order template overlay, and it shows me what template I applied. In this case, I applied one that I called base, receiving and dispersing. So it'll show you, did you put the purchase? Did you put the refi? Did you put a CD template versus a HUD template if you use HUDs? Or did you put a CSS or a commercial settlement statement template? What type of template was applied? So if you come here and you don't see this line item, that means we didn't apply a template. If you see it, it shows you what template was applied. Okay. Another question I have here is, what does this little construction, here it is, construction checkbox do? This construction checkbox ties into your register. If you are an organization who does actual construction draws for the lender, so you receive the money and you make the disbursements for each draw out to the contractors and subcontractors, etc. When you check that construction box and when you set it up on the SP admin side, it actually creates a tab in your register for you to handle those individual construction draws once you do those construction draws. So it's really only for organizations where you are actually taking the draw in yourself and making all of the disbursements along through the entire transaction. No, templates cannot be removed. Once it's there forever. Amen. Okay. Once we put it in, it's in place. Again, the only thing we can do is either modify to make it what we needed versus what we added, or we have to kind of start from scratch and replace, cancel the current order, and then go in and create a new order applying the correct template. Now, so order history lets us know what template we applied, right? So that's one history. We also have a documents history. So documents history, every time I generate a documents utilizing the documents tab. So when I publish a document or I save a document to file, so we know when we go into documents, right? And we are in our distribute section, we have those actions. We can print it, email it, publish it, or save to file, right? When we choose one or more of those actions, what actions we chose is what appears in that document history. It shows you who did it and when it was done. So if I click distribute and it goes through to distribute my document, it prints it first. It then allows me to email it to who I want to email it to. Publish is the action, which places it in my order attachments. And then save to file is the action that will actually save it to my computer. Once that's taken place, I can see where it says today at 12:15, I published this document in this order. So it's showing me the history from my documents. This automation button, if you have automated processes built in, this is where you, on a day-to-day basis, can monitor your automated processes through the automation icon in the ribbon. This will tell you if the automation was completed, if it is waiting, because remember, automation is a process that will take place in your order once you have fired it off and exited out of the order. Think of automation as Otto, the automation man. He is technically a user that we just don't see on a day-to-day basis. He's going to come in and automatically do our action for us, and we're going to see it once it's been completed. If you're wondering if an automated action has fired off, then you could come to automation, and again, it would show you if it completed, if it's still waiting, which just basically means you need to get out the file so Auto can do his job, or if it failed. If it did, you will have the capability to do things like restart it, etc. For Patriot Search Automation, if it is not running, how do we get it to go? That's one of the things you can do. So when it comes here, I'm going to kind of jump. You're not going to see this part, but basically when you see how this says it completed, it failed, this is what that automation button's going to look like when you click on it. And if you clicked failed, you see how I have now options in my ribbon actions I can take. You can restart it. And it says, do you want to restart that process? And you can, and it would then attempt to restart and fire it off. If it's still not firing off, there might be something else going on, and you'll probably need to reach out to your admin to get them to go into SP admin at a higher level to see if they can't reassign or get it to fire off again. But when you click on automation, you should see that same list like I just did, and you'll have those options based off those permissions to refire it if you need to. All righty. While we're in documents, let's talk a little bit about what we can do in documents. Have you ever gotten to this distribution screen and been like, oh, snap, I needed to go and I needed to pull some more documents over to look at? Well, our first thing is, how do I get back to that document list? And most of us close this X, and then we go back in the order and we hit the documents button again. But you don't got to, right? You actually have two ways. You can go from one corner to the other. You can either go to the top left corner and hit the Start New button, or you can go to the bottom right corner and hit Start New. Start New takes you back to your selection screen, gives you your whole list of documents, trees all over again to choose from. So you don't have to keep closing and opening up that Documents tab to go back and forth between document selection and document distribution. Now, let's talk our favorites, right? Everybody loves our favorites. I always think of documents kind of like going on a shopping spree, right? Here is my document store. It is my available ready docs. I can have every document I need at my disposal. My favorites, I think of that like my wish list. These are my everyday, this is what I want items. You have the capability to move any document from any document tree into your favorites. Favorites are yours. They only apply to you. My favorites are different from yours that are different from Susie's. Favorites give us that capability to create basically our own document tree, right? I was one of those closers back in the day that was a little OCD, and I wanted my documents in a certain order, and it didn't always fall into how it looked in the global trees that everyone had. So favorites give me that capability, guys, to build my own. Well, what can I do within favorites? Well, first up, I can actually create a folder in favorites, so I could create my own folder structure. If I right click on the favorite star, I have a flyout window that says, hey, Rhonda, you want to create a new folder? And I can choose new folder. And when I do, I can say, hey, these are going to be my buyer docs. Then I can go find what I'm looking for. Well, here's my search, right? I can search for what I want. I know that I'm going to want an affidavit. So I can search the word affidavit and hit the search icon. It's going to filter to my affidavits. I can find the one I want, and then it's a drag and a drop. I grab it, I drag it, I drop it on that favorites folder, and I clear out my search results by clicking on the X. I look up here at my favorites, there's that name affidavit, then I'm just going to drag and drop it in my folder. Let's say I also want my CD. I can grab it, drag and drop it, clear those results, drop it into my folder. I can even change the names of these documents, guys. Hey, it's my favorites. I can do what I want. I don't want it to be spelled out with all this verbiage. I can right click and rename. I just say this is the buyer CD. It's just for how I see it. When I double click or if I drag that entire folder over to my shopping cart, right, my selected ready docs, it's still going to call it what it actually is. And it's still in the original folder. All I did was kind of make a copy of it and move it into my buyer docs. In your favorites, you have this little settings cog. If you click on it, it allows you to manage those favorites. If you want your folder to be first, you can rearrange the order your favorites appear. You can create folders here, rename, delete, etc. So you have that capability to manage all of your own favorites. Okay. All right. Going to X out of my docs. I'm going to go back into my order. All right, I have two more questions I want to talk on about the histories here before we move on to the next topic I wanted to show you guys. So the order history tab is super cool. I agree with you. I think it is an awesome tool. Sometimes you'll hear us jokingly call it, that's my tattletale button, right? I didn't exactly catch how to see the selected template, particularly if an assistant opened the file and started some of the file, and now I'm working it with the meteor part of the transaction. So if I want to see what type of template was applied, I'm going to be in the order I want to see. I'm going to click Order History, and it's the initial create log. If I double click on that initial create log, in that order history window, in the details, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And when I do, it will show me actually, I'm going to cancel. Hold, please. I'm going to save my order first. So every time you save, it creates the log. In this case, when I go to order history, you see how in the second it says apply template, because this was the example where we forgot to apply it at the beginning. So if they apply the template when the order is opened, it's in the create. If they apply a template after an order has been opened, then you'll see in a descriptive field, apply template. If you double click on that one and scroll to the bottom, it will show you which template was applied. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for apply template in one of the descriptive fields. Okay. All right. One more question. If original is cash deal and we change to the loan and the transfer tax and intangible tax column in the CD cannot show correctly for backside coding issue, the formula of intangible tax cannot be applied automatically. How can this be solved? Okay. So the reason that those taxes appear from your templates, right, is because we set it up in the background. It's just something we preset, but it can always be set even after the fact, like if you're going back and forth. If you go into your CDF page 2, section E, where your recording fees or your taxes are, notice here in mine, I have some transfer taxes. If you click on the line link and go behind the line to the details of that charge line, you're going to see the fees. You should see whether it's a city or state tax, which document it is applicable to, and there should be a fee schedule associated. If that fee schedule is blank, you can click in the drop down in that field and you can choose what's applicable, and that will calculate the charge. If the fee doesn't have the type or anything, you're just setting it, because sometimes when you flip it, it may have removed some of that from that template. So you can come into any fee schedule field and you can change it. Like I said, is it a county intangible tax or a state? What document should it be based on to auto calculate? And then you would pull in the appropriate transfer fee schedule. That will then calculate it for you. So you can set it yourself if it doesn't do it automatically. All right. I think let's talk a little bit about, let's talk attachments. Since we're talking documents, right? We know in the actual documents tab, we can control our favorites, right? We can create our own folders and we can manage them. We can rename them. We can do all kinds of fun stuff. Well, what can we do from the actual attachment section of an order? So remember attachments, guys, this is basically your virtual file folder. This is where everything lives at the end of the day. When you publish documents out, you can assign folders. If you don't assign a folder, they just fall under attachments as a whole. And then from here, you can drag and drop them to the appropriate folder. Folders are set here for organizational purposes, right? We all want to be able to go into any order and know exactly where to go to find what we're looking for, right? This is huge, especially when we're talking auditing orders, right? So your folder structure may look totally different than mine. This is just kind of an out of the box, here you go, some basic folders. You can have a much more complex folder schedule. Notice if I look into this order that I have here and I go to attachments, I got a lot more going on. And if I click on each of these individual folders, I can see more and more documents. Now, here's some tips to take back from the attachment screen. We know we can have a multitude of folders like I see here. But what if I want to see more than just what's in the accounting folder? Maybe I need to see something from the accounting folder and something from the closing documents folder. I have to, as we know, click on each individual folder to be able to see those documents to the right. But did you know that you can actually see every single document here regardless of the folder it's under? To do that and to see those, I'm going to click attachments as a whole. So on the left panel, because that controls what I see here on the right, I click attachments. So when I click attachments, it is showing me everything under the attachments folder. That's why you see the same folders back and forth, because it's showing me to the right everything that's under the folder on the left I'm highlighted on. So if I click on accounting, I'm only seeing the documents under accounting. If I'm on attachments, I'm seeing the folders under attachments. If I want to see everything, once I single click the attachments folder and highlight it, I'm going to take it to the right to the actual search field. And in search, I'm going to place my cursor, and then I'm going to hit the space bar once and let it go. And I'm going to hit the enter key once and let it go. And when I do, it has now filtered to all 80 documents that are in my attachments. It's going to have a blue hyperlink on the right showing me the name of the folder and the documents that live within each of those folders. This way, if I did need to send an email and I needed something from the contract folder and I needed something from the commitment folder, I could hold down my control key and I could choose both documents, and then I could click my little email icon here in the toolbar and I could send that email with those two attachments. So I do have the capability to see it all without having to do it each individual folder. So what we did here is we single click attachments at the upper left. Then once I single click and turn it blue, I'm going to the right. I'm going to put my cursor in the search field, just click it once. Then I'm going to hit the space bar and let it go. And then I'm going to hit the enter key and let it go. And that's going to filter to all the documents listed under the attachments folder itself. Okay. In your attachments, it shows you the name of the document, the type of document. If it was attached, which means somebody sent it to you and you did a drag and a drop. If it was published, which means you created it yourself in documents. If it was copied, because we can copy documents that are here and make exact duplicate copies. How big it is, when it was last handled, and who last handled it. So every time you save, it's telling you when you saved it and who saved it. Okay. Now, how many times do you do something like a commitment and you make a change to it and you have to do another commitment and you make in some modifications, or you have a closing statement and then you make a change to it because you had to add this or do that and you want to be able to kind of track what those changes are? You notice here in my attachment, some of these descriptive fields are filled in. Well, did you know that you can control what's in that descriptive field? If you were to go out and create a closing statement, so if I were to go into documents and I was to create an Alta closing statement, and let's say I was to distribute it. So I go in, get it all set up, I distribute it. See how it has a description of CDF? I can just say okay, and now it's added into my into my documents, that combined statement, and then I can drag it to whatever folder I want it to go to. Now, I have the capability to modify what's in this description, where some things pull in. If you right click a document, guys, and you go down to properties, here's that descriptive field. I can say this was revised, loan amount changed. And I can hit apply and say okay, and then that can be reflected here. So if I have 6 statements, because we had to keep going back and forth and changing this and changing that and so forth, I can actually put just a short description in there of what it is I'm making these modifications for. So if I'm looking at all of them and I'm trying to track what took place and how it took place, I can go up and down with that information. So a couple of cool things we can do in attachments, right? We can see it all. We can maintain what these descriptions are. It's really helpful when we're talking commitments, right? You send a commitment out and then they change the loan amount, and you gotta send another commitment out and then they do this and that. And we can just kind of track what version it is, what we did, how we handled it, that sort of information. All right. So I'm going to wrap up for us talking our ever favorite shortcut keys, right? We got bunches of them, but these are the ones we always want to keep in mind, okay? We know I'm going to actually start at the bottom and work my way up. When you're in an order, you have the capability to have your status bar to see if your order is balanced or not. Well, anytime your order is out of balance, if you guys hit F12 on your keyboard, it will take you straight to your order balance screen, which is found in your escrow and closing my screens. And guys, it will even usually 99.6.79% of the time tell you what's going on and where to go to fix your problem. So F12 helps you when you need to balance. You ever put in all of your charges and you're like, hey, where is my what is my loan funding amount? That's the one thing you can never find. You can see other things going on, but you never know what your anticipated loan funding amount is. Well, did you know you can see it at any given time? If you hit F11 on your keyboard, it will pull up your loan funding summary. And your loan funding summary will always break down what your anticipated loan funding amount is at any given time in your order. F9 is another way to access a lookup table in lieu of clicking the blue hyperlink. F7 runs a spell check on any text field that you type text in. F5 will take you directly to a contact screen if a contact field has a code already in the field. If I single click HOA and hit F5, it takes me straight to the HOA contact field. Then we're going to leave the last two. F2 is the most important. F2 removes red text. F2 it to undo it so that you can input the correct information. And then F1 takes you to SoftPro's web-based help page where you can view application resources for any additional assistance that you may need. So that, my friends, gets us through some tips and tricks in SoftPro Select. I had two more questions I want to answer real quick. I know I'm a few minutes behind, but we did get started just a minute behind. Does publishing mean the same document multiple times do not version over each other? No, they do not. They will just put 2, 3, 4, 5 up at the back end of it. It will not override it. You have to move any old documents into the deleted folder. It doesn't delete them, it's just a holding spot for them. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the status bar here in the upper right-hand corner. I see this because the screens, my screens that I am looking at are the SoftPro enhanced screens. If you guys look in your order tab and click on my screens, which is in the quick link section, you should have SoftPro screens or SoftPro enhanced screens. The enhanced screens have the status bar in the upper right. If you do not have enhanced screens, you may reach out to SoftPro support and they can assist you with installing those enhanced screens. And the last thing I have, and that should answer all the questions, is F11 is what you use to access your loan funding summary. So yes, it has been recorded, so you guys will have this to reference later on. All righty, I'm turning it back over to you, Leslie. I think that is a wrap.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great job getting through all the questions. This was super helpful. I actually learned a few things from some newer things. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. We will absolutely be sending out a recording of this. Give us a week or so. Our marketing team sends it, and they are at a marketing conference this week, so it might take an extra few days to get out, but we will get it out. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Rhonda, for presenting and sharing your knowledge, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Save You a Seat.
Bye, everyone.